And we're live now. Hello, everyone that's out there watching, if there is anyone out there watching.
Mhm.
It usually takes a while for people to kind of click on it and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know, should we start with just talking roughly? I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself. I mean, I feel like at this point it is a bit useless because you've been on my channel so many times, but
Yeah.
you might as well go ahead. Leah?
Should we okay. Then hi, I'm Leah from Tea with Leah. I talk about books on my channel and also sometimes I make like reaction videos. My main genre is fantasy. And even though I haven't posted in a while a video, I'm still super excited for this live.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Sarah. Yeah, I have a booktube channel, Sarah Lorraine Reads. And yeah, I just do like wrap-ups, reading vlogs, normal bookish kind of stuff. And I'm dabbling into more fantasy now, so this is like very exciting for me.
I feel for some reason I guess it was because I didn't really know you guys beforehand. Obviously, like Leah, I now know is a fantasy reader. But when we first started on the Jade City buddy read, I swore everyone else. I thought everyone else was a fantasy reader, and I was the only person in there that like didn't usually read fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I just associated it. So every time you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm not really a fantasy reader," I'm like, "But really?"
Well, it's also too, I think, because like I started reading more fantasy as well, like with BookTube, obviously, because there's so many like really popular fantasy series and everything. But like prior to starting BookTube, like I think the only fantasy I ever read was like Harry Potter and then like the Shadowhunter books. And that was like within the past year because I never read those prior. So I think to other people, they're probably like, you're always talking about fantasy books. I'm like, yeah, but like before, you know?
Yeah, it's because you have to catch up with all that stuff that everyone else read.
100%.
Yeah, that's so funny because with me it's like completely the opposite side because I only read like fantasy, and now that I joined BookTube, I also dabble into different genres.
I think I like when I first started reading, like properly, which was a few years ago. It was just like I heard about one book. I was like, okay, I don't care what the genre is. I'll just pick it up. So it was like just random, like a couple of fantasy books, and then like some contemporary and stuff like that. And I just didn't have a clue of what I liked. It just was like, oh, I'll just get whatever everyone else is talking about, which is still the case. But I just know a bit more of like, will I like it or not beforehand.
Yeah.
Right, I'm thinking, should we start off with like our rating and kind of our rough feelings of it, even though I feel like it's pretty obvious, but like just in case people don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, so should I start?
Yeah.
So this was actually my second time reading this book. So the first time I read it physically, and then I only gave it like 3 stars, and this time I listened to the audiobook and I completely fell in love with every single aspect of the book, and so I gave it 5 stars. Yeah.
I'm curious, why do you think it was like such a drastic difference from like the first time I read it and this time?
Because so I listened to the German audiobook because obviously my main language is German, and I think they changed some things in the translation about just some things that Sarah J. Maas just always writes, like certain phrases she just always uses, and those were really getting on my nerve when I was reading this whole book. And in the audiobook, it just wasn't there, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much more. And also reading it the second time, I just completely, of course, since I already knew the story, I knew that everything that she laid out was going to be important one way or another. And so I was like, oh, this is so important. This will come up later. And I think that's why I enjoyed it even more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I'm obsessed. It's like my new favorite book, like ever. I think I like just like it's like yes, everything. So I love it.
Yeah, I gave it 5 stars as well. The thing is, I feel like I read a book and then I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorites. And then like a couple of books later, I read a new book and I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorites, because I always like feel a lot more strongly about a book as I'm reading it and like when I've just finished with it. And then I look back at it and I'm like, was it actually that good? But like from what I can remember, I definitely did really enjoy it, and it definitely is like one of the favorites of the year. And yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but like when it comes to these kind of books, any kind of criticism or like critical thinking I have gets thrown out the window, and I'm like, I'm just enjoying it, so I don't really care. So I looked up like on Goodreads, I was looking at what the reviews were, and there was someone that gave it like 2 stars or 1 star or something, and was completely slating it, and I was like, usually I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. Here I was just like, can you just shut up? Like, no one wants to hear you talking bad about a book that most people like. I mean, come on, shut up.
Yeah, hurts my feelings. I'm like, I'm actually offended. I'm normally not that offended, but I'm like, this one, I'm offended. I'm like, you're wrong.
It's like personally, it's like saying to every single person that's read that book, there's something wrong with you.
100%. It's rude.
Right. The thing is, when we did that, when we were discussing Jade War, or was it Jade War? Yeah, I think so. Leah had all these points and stuff like that she was bringing up. I'm not going to be able to do that. I have got some things that I kind of, as I said, wrote down while I was reading it. I don't know, is there so much we can say, like, I guess we can talk about kind of characters and things like that without it being spoilery.
Yeah.
Just in case. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, there were so many characters, and I just remember at the end of it thinking, like, how great all of the characters were. There was, like, I didn't feel like, you know how sometimes the main characters are just, like, really, really good, but then the rest of the characters are just, like, superficial and everything. I felt like some of my favorite characters were, like, side characters.
I agree.
So do you guys have a favorite character? I mean, aside from obvious ones.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm obsessed with Bryce. I think she was like an amazing, like, main character.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love Rune. He was like one of my favorite characters, and I also really love Fury, and I want to like get more like backstory and stuff into her.
Yeah.
Rune, I like would die for Rune. I just want him to like really be a part of the second book even more, because I loved him from like the moment he was introduced.
I have like literally nothing to add to this question now, Chloe, because everything that Sarah said was exactly what I wanted to add.
That's really,
because those are also like my favorite characters.
Yeah, I think what I like about, I mean, I didn't really think too much about him being a favorite, but I think what I like about his character is that it really was dependent on him being like an interesting person, because like, yes, they described what he looked like and stuff like that, but it didn't feel like there was this massive focus on him being attractive. It was about the fact that he was quite like witty and sharp and like, you know, had these things going for him. Whereas I feel like with Bryce and Hunt, like, they're great characters, but there was also so much focus on the way they looked. It was kind of like, can you just like, yeah, you've described her bum like 15,000 times. I don't need to hear about it again. Thank you very much.
It's because they're the two main characters, so you have to like ship them together, you know?
Yeah, but you can do that. The thing that I loved about their relationship was the way that they were as people together, and the fact that they were really like yin and yang to a certain degree, but also like just really helped each other out. So I didn't care about their sexual chemistry, obviously a little bit, but like not as much as I cared about their like just being people that kind of fit together.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. But one character that I really liked was, what's her name? The what was she, like a sprite or something? I can't remember what her name was.
Lahaba.
Yeah. I didn't know how to pronounce that name. I don't I don't know where that name. Some of the names are just like really random.
Yeah.
I feel like Sarah J. Maas likes to pick out things from loads of different like mythologies and like languages and stuff, because that sounds like it could be kind of like Arabic or Hebrew or something like that. And then a lot of the other stuff she does, I noticed, was like based on like Nordic mythology. So, but yeah, I really liked her. I thought she was a really fun character.
Yeah, I loved her as well.
Yeah.
I honestly liked all of the characters. Like, I don't think there's one character I didn't like, and even the ones that are like bad, I still think that they were like really well-written characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like every side character is so well fleshed out, even if they just have a little time on the page. And obviously she has a lot of time to write characters into this. But still, it was an amazing job, because sometimes when you read different books who are like as thick as this one, the side characters are not as well fleshed out. And here I feel like we know a bit about everyone's backstory, basically.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think it did a really good job to like set it up, because obviously the thing is, if you knew everything about the characters at the end of this book, you wouldn't want to read like, yes, the plot will develop in the next book, but you also want to learn more about the characters. So I feel like we did like learn about everything. There's
Yeah,
definitely more that we can hear about.
I agree. I feel like, well, I want to ask that too. Like, how did you guys feel about like the length of the book? Like, do you think it like should have been the 800 pages, or like, do you think they could have cut it out? Because I honestly, I feel like there could be some stuff to make it a little bit shorter, but like, I feel like all 800 pages were like used very thoroughly. You know, like I don't think there was ever a
Yeah.
time where I was like, this is pointless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the first time reading it, obviously since I'm not a native English speaker and I read it in English, I thought it could have been definitely shorter. But now going back over it a second time, I really like just sat down and listened to every chapter, and I thought everything that Sarah J. Maas is describing is literally important later. So I don't know what I should cut out in the book. It's
Yeah.
perfect like it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought there wasn't any points where I thought that it was like unnecessarily long. And especially because like I've read books, obviously I've read a lot of Stephen King, so I can compare it to like he really like honestly, I'm not kidding, in it he literally uses a whole page to describe the medicine in someone's cabinet. Like just a list of medication, and it's like that is over describing. But like I don't feel like, and even like reading, I know that it's not quite as long, but when I read Akawar as well, that's relatively long, and I didn't feel like she like wrote too much in it either. I feel like I think she's quite good at like keeping what needs to be in there. And I think it's more so down to the fact that there's a lot of stuff that happens in this book. Like it's, and maybe like if it was published a few years earlier, she might have split it into 2 books, because I don't think it was as common to write this kind of fantasy that was that long as like the first book. But I thought it was good.
I agree.
Hey, Tori.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, I thought it was perfect.
Should we just go on to like just talking about spoilers and whatever? Let me just get my notes up, because I think that the first thing that I remember thinking was how it was setting up like the relationship between Bryce and Connor. And I was like so for it. I was like, this is going to be so cute. They're going to be so great together. Just like, it's so nice to read about a man who clearly worships a woman, but like in a healthy way. It was going to be such a great relationship. And finally she says yes. And then I should have expected it, because it says literally in the blurb that her friends died, but I had read it as like only one friend died. So I thought it was just Danica. So I was like, okay, Connor's still going to be there.
Yeah.
No.
I did not know one thing about this book when I went into it. So like I did not know that Danica dies. Like I did not know that her friends die. Like I had seen like fan art and stuff, but I completely like it, I wasn't paying attention to it. So I also didn't know who the love interest was. Like I forgot his name. So I was like, when Connor came out, I was like, I feel like Connor's such a basic name. I was like, that doesn't sound familiar, but I was the same way. I was like kind of for it. And I was like, oh my God, they're so cute. And then I was like, oh, maybe we're going to get like a little bit of like a love triangle action. You know what I mean? I was like, that seems like a very Sarah J. Maas thing to do. So I was like, okay, cool. And then it's just like everybody's dead. And I was like, excuse me? Like I was extremely upset about it.
Yeah, so I knew when the first time I read it, I knew that her friends were going to die, because I got spoiled with the blurb of the back, of course, of the book. And even though I knew it was going to happen, I did not want to believe it until it happened. And even afterwards, I was like, maybe someone survived, maybe Connor survived, because I just shipped them so much, because they were so cute together. And I'm like still sad about it.
Yeah. Well, I was also just so upset about Danica too, because like they were making them out to be such best friends, like in the beginning, which obviously they were, but like it was just very traumatic for me, because I was like over here, like I was obsessed from the get-go, I think, because it was like, oh, they're these like party girls. And I was like, ooh, how fun, you know, like you don't really like, but you don't really read about that kind of stuff like in fantasies. It's always this like, you know, tomboy, not like other girls, like, oh, I'm a loner, like, you know what I mean? It's always like that kind of character. So it was cool to have this character who was like super outgoing and had a whole group of friends and was like out partying and stuff. And so I was like loving the vibe, and I was like, oh my God, fun. And then she's dead. And I was like,
No
that's
more
not fun
partying.
anymore. Yeah, I was like, I'm upset about this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't know what else to add to that.
But I do have to say, like, the beginning of the book, the world building was like a lot. And I think that's why I started annotating too, because it was like so much information. And I was like, I am so confused.
I didn't actually think, I don't know, maybe I just don't give myself enough credit or anything. But I just didn't think that it was like, or maybe I just don't think about it. Maybe I'm just like reading it. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And people seem to pay, because like whenever I read this kind of fantasy, I find it a lot easier than like the 5th season, for example, just to name one. So I didn't find it that difficult, but also because of the fact that it feels very grounded and similar. Like it feels like there's a lot of parallels to the real world, especially when it was being, I think, like the fact that there was talk of like partying and drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, which there usually isn't if it's like sort of normal fantasy, if that makes sense, instead of like urban fantasy. Obviously, this brings in a lot of the kind of urban nightlife of like what actually happens in the real world. So to have that, even though I personally can't relate to it, I was like, I know there's people that do this in real life, so it kind of feels similar to like something that you would, I don't know, read in the news or something like that.
Yeah.
So I found it a little bit easier because of that.
I also thought it was very easy to get into just because it's urban fantasy and it just felt so real, and because they also had like smartphones and TVs and all of that. And I think, especially because we don't get as much politics in these in this book like in Jade City, it was just so much easier to get into.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that part was easy. I think the thing for me was like the whole like actual like system of like what like veneer are and like the all of the like magical beings, because like in this one too, it's like every single magical being is a part of this world. You know what I mean? Like it's not like in some books where it's just fae. It's like, oh, there's fae and werewolves and vampires and there's everything. So then I think it was that, and then the different like houses and stuff that like I felt like we were getting so much information where like all of her friends are all different beings, and like you know, like the sprites, like they were enslaved and things like, you know what I mean, like things like that I was just like that was a lot. But I feel like it was helpful that it was an urban fantasy, because if it wasn't and it was like an entirely different world as well, I would have probably been like, absolutely not, my brain can't take this.
Yeah, I actually really liked the element of there being so many different like races or whatever you call them, like different types of things, because it felt again more realistic. Like if you could say that like the wolves were a certain part of society and like the fae are a different part and stuff like that. It was really interesting to read that as well, because when you read something like Akatar where it's just fae, and like there's a relationship between the fae and the humans, but there's not as much like interaction between different like types of beings and stuff like that, whereas here there's a lot more conflict and stuff like that because of the fact that there are different types. So I really enjoyed that.
I agree.
Tori says she loves the friendship. Yes, the fact that it is like even like something that happens towards the end where Danica kind of shows up again is really nice, and it kind of like, and I think it follows her throughout the story of her being like not sure whether she should, like trying to hold on to it, scared that she's going to let go of this friendship if she doesn't like feel physical pain or whatever. I really like that sentiment, like showing you that you can still be friends with someone even after they've passed away. Like you can still hold on to that.
No, I agree. And I just like, not even just her friendship with Danica, but I feel like her friendship with like all of them, because like she was still mentioning throughout the story about Fury and how like she hadn't spoken to her, and then she had mentioned the whole thing about her other friend Juniper, and like how she was like still like kind of sprinkled throughout, and how she really helped her like after everything happened and everything like that. I just feel like the friendships were like really, really great in this story. And like I literally loved it so much.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, one thing I wrote down is that I wanted, like while I was reading it, and it was like describing her apartment, like the new one that she gets after everything happens, right? And it's all like luxury and everything, and she's sitting there like watching trashy TV. I was like, I just want to be there. Like, obviously, I don't want the extra stuff of like friends dying, like trying to hunt down a demon, blah blah blah. But I wanted to just sit and like watch trashy TV, especially when they were describing it. It was so funny, especially with the sprite, like watching those programs and stuff like that. That was another element, like real life kind of element that I really liked.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny when Everly Harper was like watching reality TV or whatever show she was watching. It also made it feel so real, obviously, because normally when we have like these sprites and fays and everything, we're always in a like high fantasy setting in like in the middle of a castle in I don't know what century. And so it was so refreshing just to have like these connection of our real world clashing with these magical beings. I thought that was so cool.
No, I definitely agree. Like, I just feel like it made it feel so much more like relatable as well, you know, just like because in a lot of fantasies, like unless something is happening that is actually kind of relatable to like an experience in your life, like you don't really like relate to it in that way. You can still enjoy it, but I think that at least for me is what made me like really, really feel connected to this book is that like everything felt very relatable like that. Like, oh my God, yeah, like when I'm at work, like, you know, when I used to be at work, like in the office sometimes, like my friends would be like watching The Bachelor, like recaps, you know what I mean? And we would just be like stupid and talk, just like little things like that. Just, it's like really nice to like recognize it and be like, oh my God, yeah, same, you know?
Do you guys have anything that like stands out to you of like moments you want to talk about? Because I'm just looking at my phone and I'm like, this is all blurring together.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, like I have too many tabs that I can't even like begin to even like look at them. But I guess like what were your guys' thoughts overall about like the arc of like Bryce and Hunt's relationship? Like, how did you guys feel about that? Because obviously it's a very like slow burn romance between them. Like, how did you guys like that?
I thought personally I wanted it to go faster, but it's because like them actually being together took up such a small portion at the very end of the book. And I could figure out if it was going at like while I was like halfway through, if it was still going at the same pace, that it was going to end up like not really being much until the very end. But also the fact that there was never that hesitation really. I mean, there was a hesitation to begin with, and like that you shouldn't be in a relationship, whatever. But it didn't, you know how sometimes, well, a lot of the time there's books where they're like, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't, and then one person is like, oh no, they don't feel the same about me, and the other person then like thinks the same thing afterwards, but like not at the same time. So it takes so long for them both to admit it to each other. I didn't feel like that was here. Like they both at the same time knew that they were attracted to each other, which to a certain degree kind of annoyed me, because I was like, just like say something, like you both know. But I also think that like as far as like slow burn goes, I think it was done really well, and I think that like the tension was really good. So I'm kind of like half and half on it.
Yeah, so I really liked the slow burn because I thought it was quite interesting how these two characters met, as Bryce was deeply traumatized and Hunt also is of course deeply traumatized because all of the stuff he has to do as an Umbra Mortis, like killing people, like I don't know, whenever his boss wants him to. And I thought it was really cool to see how both of these characters came out of a deep place, and then they just got better and better together. The more they kind of got to know each other. I thought it was so wholesome and just cute. Like even though I'm not a fan of like angel, how do you say that? Angel mythical beings like Hunt is.
Yeah.
I still really appreciated their relationship because they were just, I don't know, perfect for each other. And therefore, I'm super afraid of the next book, what will happen, as Sarah J. Maas tends to split people up.
Yeah, well, I did actually in that review that I mentioned where it was like really bad. I part of it said basically that like knowing Sarah J. Maas in the next book, she's not even going to end up with Hunt because Mika or Micra, however you pronounce it, is suddenly going to be like her love interest or whatever. I was like, have you read the whole book? Are you sure? I mean, unless he's like, you know, returned from the dead, then fair enough. But like, I just So I hope, but it's like surely you can't keep on doing that throughout books. Like you can't just reuse the same trope. Like surely. Like just keep them together. Listen to the fans.
Well, also too, I just think if you even like compare the strength of their relationship, even though they barely got together at the very end. If you compare them to like Tamlin and Feyre in the first book, like it's not the same. You know what I mean? Like it's like at such a deeper level. So like I highly doubt she would do something like that. But no, I really liked the slow burn aspect because I felt like I was watching them like fall in love with each other. And like I really liked that, and it felt very like, oh my god, and like butterfly to me, because like it was just nice because like that, like every little thing that happened, like every little like slight interaction, like there was a part where he literally put like his hat on her and I was like screaming. I was like so excited. But it's because it just like reminds me of even like when you have a crush on someone and like every little thing that they do, you're like, oh my god, wait. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't have to actually be something that is this really substantial thing of like passion or whatever. It's just like a little tiny thing. I really, really liked that. I'm just mad that they never fully boned. I'm so upset about that. I was so mad. I was like, and I knew she was gonna do it to me. I was like, Sarah J. Maas, you better give me some action. And then she gave me nothing. Very little. I was very upset.
On the topic, that is true. Like, honestly, the second book, is it actually going to be anything to do with the plot? Like, is there actually going to be anything?
It better be literally like half plot, half porn. That's what I want from it. Because I'm just upset. But I was like, you know what? Maybe she'll do like an Akamath. She'll give us like a full chapter. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for like full action. We deserve it. In my opinion.
I think it's also so funny that, of course, Sarah J. Maas is known to be that she's like writing a few smut scenes here and there. And I read a lot of reviews where all of the people basically wrote that they were expecting a lot of smut and then there was nothing.
And then they're just disappointed because of that.
Yeah, there were like tons of reviews I read in the beginning when the first time I read this book.
A false advertisement. I think the reason that their relationship is so much stronger is actually because of that, because it is like, it's really subtle. Whereas I'm just, because it's the only series that I've read from her before, I'm always going to compare it to ACOTAR. Of like, if you look at the way Tamlin and Feyre are, it's very, very like obnoxious hate to love, or not even love, just like this kind of lust. Whereas with Crescent City, it is, they don't even hate each other at the beginning. They're just very like wary of each other, I think, and because they have these like preconceptions of each other. But like, it's not that like really like stupid hating each other for no reason. And then it's just very slow, like, and they have so much banter. And I think for me personally, that's one of the best things. They just like bounce off of each other, and that's when you know that it's like gonna work.
100%. I think too, like that's something, because I agree. I think like no matter what, like I'm gonna compare this to ACOTAR because this is like the only other thing that I've ever read by Sarah J. Maas. But I feel like even the banter, in my opinion, is like so much better than the banter between like Rhys and Feyre. Like, I don't know, because sometimes Rhys and Feyre, like, love them, but like sometimes it can sound a little cringy. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff you're like, shut up. But like this banter just felt like so authentic and real, and like it was like very, like I actually laughed. Like I was like giggling when I was reading this book because there was like parts that were so funny to me, and I loved their banter together. And then also too, like what Leah was talking about before too, about just like how they were both like so traumatized before they were really together. Like I think too, like they're such parallels of each other, and like they were so closed off to absolutely everyone around them because of their trauma, and like for them to be able to like find each other and like help each other in that way. Like that scene, that shower scene.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh.
It was everything.
That shower scene is like lives in my head rent free. Like I have never read anything and like felt so like, oh my god, reading it, and it was just like such an intimate moment, and it was so beautiful. It was like my favorite scene in this entire book.
Yeah, like as far as this genre, like fantasy romance goes, it was so nuanced. Like I really didn't expect it. It felt like there were so many layers to it and so many emotions. There were a few slip-ups when then it was all of a sudden like, oh, and then I accidentally looked down and I was like, did you need to add that? Maybe not. Like it was so like sweet, and then but it was just and it didn't, like, when it started, like, that sort of moment of her peering into the bathroom, it never felt like she was overstepping any boundaries. It just felt natural, which, like, I don't know whether that says more about me or it says more about the actual situation, but, like, I'm gonna pretend that I don't consider that, or that I, like, yeah, anyway, I'm just gonna act like that's a normal thing. But yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah. So I have read ACOTAR, and I also read the whole entire Throne of Glass series. And I think out of all of the relationships that we get so far in all of these 3 different series, I think Bryce and Hunt definitely feel the most organic and natural. I don't know, but obviously this is also her latest book, so she's gotten better and better at writing relationships, but I think it's very organic and it feels super real to me. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, like, rang at my door and it would be Bryce and Hunt standing there.
No,
Coming over for Christmas.
Listen, I would love that.
Yeah.
No, but I completely agree. Like, I think every character in this series or like in this book also like feels so real. Like, and I think that's why it was I mean, in general, like, I'm just a character person, so like I always get attached to characters, but I think even more so that's like what makes me love this book even more, is that I feel like I was even more attached because like when I was reading it, like I just felt like all of these people were so real because like they're such realistic characters, because all of them are flawed in their own ways, all of them have good qualities and all of them have really bad qualities, and like it's just they're such like they're not normal, but they're like such normal people, you know, like they could be people, like they were reminding me of people that I know in my life and stuff like that. So I just love it so much.
Do you know, I'm really excited. I hope in the next book and like the book. Do you guys know if it's going to be a trilogy or like a series?
I think it's going to be a trilogy as so far.
I thought it was a trilogy. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of pages in total. Could you imagine if it ends up just going on and on and on? And it's just like 800-page books, slowly getting bigger every book.
Maybe it'll be like 4 books, because isn't there 4 there's 4 houses? And the next one's House of Sky and Breast, so maybe there'll be 4 in the series.
That makes sense. But so far on Goodreads, there's only like 3 titles. But I mean, it's often like this, and then they'll still add like another book in the series.
But anyway, I hope that she kind of like explores the other relationships as well, because I feel like kind of halfway through and towards the end, it kind of alluded to more relationships. There's definitely 2 that I can think of that looks like they've either already happened or are going to happen, and hopefully we'll find out more about that. I also really like the fact that, so I was thinking back on when I read ACOTAR, like how diverse it is in comparison to this book. I think this book is crazily diverse in terms of sexuality and like race. I think from what I can remember and like what I think I picked up on, then ACOTAR was at the beginning, because I'm pretty sure ACOTAR at the beginning was like pretty much just everyone was white, maybe a black person or 2, but I can't remember. And then like basically all straight relationships, or at least for the main ones. And then in, I think it's Akamath, that we actually introduced like a kind of a main character who is gay, I think. Whereas here, there was already from the beginning like gay characters, which I really liked. And like it seemed like, I mean, I feel like she doesn't describe skin tone as much. But I do feel like there was different, like alluding to different races and stuff like that, which I really liked.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think in fan art too, I was looking at fan art, and I think as far as fan art is, so I'm sure it was like actually talked about in the book, but I'm so bad at paying attention to like people's descriptors. Like I just like don't ever remember. But I think Fury looks like she's Asian, like in a lot of fan art. And then Juniper? Yes, Juniper is black, I believe. And then Danica had like long blonde hair, and I was like, she's blonde.
Yeah, do you know, I thought automatically, of Danny Brown, so I was like, she's black. It's Danica, she's black.
Yeah,
no,
I thought the same thing too, and I was like, oh my god, she's super white.
She could listen, she could be black and still have blonde hair. I mean, that's still a possibility. But if the fan art's saying it just never really gets
explained
or discussed or anything like that.
But no, but I agree. I think it's like so much more diverse, this book.
Yeah, definitely. But I think we also have to take in consideration that Sarah J. Maas wrote like Throne of Glass and Alcatraz when she was like really young, and the
Mhm.
entire book industry was like always focused on white people, and
Mhm.
only
Yeah.
like now in the last year we're getting this change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why. But I'm happy to see it, obviously.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just
know.
hope it like keeps on continuing. Also, I'm pretty sure Juniper and Fury were a thing, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. It was like
Yes. So
alluded
that's
to, yeah.
the fact that they are potentially like Asian and black. Like
Mhm.
that's amazing. Like even
Mhm.
just in general, there's not a lot of like what's it called? Like couples that are what the hell is my brother doing here? Go away.
That picture.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's Shrek,
Yeah, it's Shrek.
but it's like super ugly. Anyway, there's just in general, like even not just in fantasy, but like in all genres, unless it's written by someone of color, there doesn't tend to be like couples where it's two different races, without there being a white person. It's usually
Mhm.
like interracial couples are usually a white person and a black person or a white person and an Asian person.
Yeah.
Never
Mhm.
like two different like non-white
Mhm.
races. So it'll be really interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I also do think that she'll probably like go deeper into like other relationships in the next book because I feel like that tends to be I feel like that tends to be a thing that a lot of authors do in series is like the first book is very centered on like the two main characters and then starting in the next books they start to like expand a little bit more because in the first book obviously you have to like world build and you have to like kind of have everybody get a good understanding of the characters and everything like that and then in the next books you can start to kind of like go deeper into the side characters so I feel like she'll probably do that because we're
Mm.
also kind of like alluded to a relationship between Rune and Hypaxia, I think is how you say her
Yeah.
name, the
Yeah.
Med Witch. So I feel like we'll probably get those relationships.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
also interested to see if we will get more of Aidas, is that his name? Like the Prince of Hell and
Oh yeah.
Jessica, because in the last chapter in the epilogue, basically, they
Mhm,
were hinting some big stuff, and I'm like,
mhm.
what are you talking about? Please tell me.
Yeah, I'm like, who is
Why can I
Hunt's
not remember
dad?
that?
I'm like, who is
Yeah.
Hunt's dad? Because like he was talking about that
Mm,
in the last epilogue. I feel like that epilogue was perfect because I
Mm.
feel like because I was just very nervous because I've been reading a lot of like From Blood and Ash. And From Blood and Ash, the cliffhangers at the end are like massive cliffhangers where it's
mm,
like then the next book starts like literally right at that exact same spot. So it's like you're basically stopping mid scene in those books.
mm,
So I was really nervous that we were going to get like a really big cliffhanger at the end of this book, but I was really happy that it was more so like everything, the whole plot of this book was like resolved. And then we kind of have like this little like just hint, like super vague hint of something else going on that
Yeah.
like makes me really want to read the next book. So I'm happy because it's like I got a little bit of both.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was happy with the epilogue.
It reminds me of like when you're watching like a TV series and then it's like the end of a season and then you just see like a tiny little scene afterwards
Mhm.
Yeah.
hinting towards something's about to happen. Like
Mhm.
those I think it was a classic thing to do in the 90s of like just
Mhm.
having that like post-credit scene and you're like, oh dang it, now I need to like watch the next season.
Yeah.
So it definitely yeah.
Yeah. I'm also very interested to see if we will get some chapters out of Fury's review, because
Mm.
Mhm.
she's just so interesting and mysterious, and I want to know what her job is, what she does.
Mhm. I
Doesn't
agree.
she just
No.
kill people?
Yeah, but who does
That's
she
what those.
kill and why? I want to
Yeah.
I
know.
know.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
hoping
I'm
she
really intrigued by her too.
I'm hoping she just kills some like really rich men.
I would absolutely love that.
Eh, like rich, straight, white, cis men.
Mhm.
Anything else that like fits into like the that category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would literally love that. I know. I'm very curious like what the next book is about. I haven't read the blurb
Mm,
or anything, but
No, me neither.
I'm very curious as to what direction they're going to go in because I feel like they kept mentioning a lot like the whole like rebellion of like the humans and stuff in the
Mhm.
I don't know, Pangera. I wish we had like a whole world map because I'm very confused about like what the world is actually called and like if like Crescent City, like that's obviously just a city, but like what country is it on? You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
very confused about like the world. The
I think
actual
it's
world.
very similar to the way that Akatar, you know how Akatar is like technically it's a world, but at the same time there's not really different countries, it's just one
Like
big
mass.
landmass kind of
Yeah.
looks like it looks suspiciously like the UK.
Yeah.
Just saying. But I don't know. Yeah, I feel like sometimes she's quite bad at like differentiating. Like
Mhm.
she's very good at building the immediate surroundings, but not so
Mhm.
much like the world as like a broader thing.
Yeah.
But that might be something that comes up in the next book.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out if it's what was it going to be called? House of Sky and
House
Breath.
of Sky
Is
and
that?
Breath, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
that's
I'm
the house
guessing,
that Hunt is a
yeah.
part of.
Ah, okay. So that makes sense. That if we
Mhm.
like kind of, I'm guessing it's going to be. I mean, it's not that it's from anyone's perspective in this, but like I think there was
Mhm.
definitely a focus of like Bryce being the main character. Maybe
Yeah.
like seeing more about his like people he interacts with and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think also too Rune, because I'm seeing here that it says it's angels and fae that are a part of the
Yeah.
House of Sky and Breath. So I feel like Rune, I'm more than positive he's gonna be like a bigger part in the next book. Because I just feel like they were giving him like side character action, but still like points of view, you know, he was still getting some chapters.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're really gonna like delve into him.
Yeah, I think from the side characters that we got, we definitely had the most chapters out of his point of view.
Mhm.
And actually, what is Fury for a being? Do you know what she is?
I had literally written it
Some kind of
down.
like not normal thing.
Yeah.
Like not something you hear about a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think she's like kind of random.
Does she?
She's
I think she belongs to
outcast.
the House of Flame and Shadow, though, right?
I believe so. Oh my god, I
I don't know. I'm so confused though, because wasn't Bryce part of House of Earth and Blood?
Yeah, but it's because
Because of her
I've
father.
forgotten
I
everything. Yeah, but
think
her
it's
father.
also
But then,
because of Danica. Because um Danica, oh, and because she's half human.
oh, okay, there
Because
we go.
humans are part of Earth and Blood. And then Danica's a shifter because she's a werewolf. Because I think it had mentioned something because like since they went to like college together that when she got through the dad when she got like her citizenship or whatever,
Yeah,
that she was able to like choose what house she wanted to be in. And I think she chose that one because of Danica. I
cool.
believe. Okay,
Do you know
I'm
what?
now.
I'm looking forward to hopefully if there is like what we were talking about of being like 4 books each one for like each house. I
Mhm.
feel like the House of Many Waters is going to be very interesting. Like when they were just like alluding to that kind of area, it sounded really
Mhm.
interesting. And like I haven't read any stories, I don't think, about like kind of mythical creatures that live in the water.
Yeah. Well, and then what is the character's name? I forget his name. The
I
one,
don't know the guy that helped out.
yeah, that
Like the
was
Water
helping.
Prince.
Yeah, something with a
Yeah.
T.
Yeah, I forgot
I
his
was gonna
name
say,
too.
I feel like he'll probably like
Be more
be
in
a
part.
little bit bigger in like the
Yeah.
next part, and maybe they'll have more scenes like interacting with the House of Many Waters and stuff.
Mm.
If it is gonna be something like that where you get a book for like each house, I feel like that would be really interesting. I'm also definitely still paying attention. I'm really just trying to figure out where they talk about Fury because I'm really curious now
Just look through the whole
what she is.
800 pages.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh no, because I remembered something in the very beginning, like within the first few chapters, because I had literally written it on a post-it note. Like I had wrote what each of them were, but then once I like knew in my head who they were, I like threw away the post-it like a big dummy.
But Chloe, when you asked us before which scenes were like stuck in our head, I also had just thought of the scene where Hunt and Bryce basically had a Zoom call with Bryce's parents.
That was
I love
genius.
that.
It was so good.
I love that.
I
Her
loved her
parents are
mom.
amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say her mom is literally exactly like, oh my god, I'm dead. Sorry, I just really quickly, I read one of my tabs because I think she was talking about like her dad, but she said something. At least he's not some psychotic alpha hole who'll demand marathon, call me his mate, lock me in his house, and never let me out again. And I'm more than positive she was talking about like her dad to like her mom. But I put Tamlin, is that you? Because it was giving me very much Akamath
Yeah.
vibes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm surprised that word wasn't used before in ACOTAR, alcohol.
I mean, listen, she clearly
Like-
just thought of it because she was really running with it. She was running with it.
It's the same as like when she was like, she kept on using, was it like tearing to ribbons or whatever it was in
God, yeah.
ACOTAR? Like to be fair, it kind of reminds me of myself because I tend to find that like every now and again I just remember this one word exists and then my brain just like gets stuck on it and I always use it to describe, even though there's like loads of other words I could use, it's just the same one. So I kind of understand it, but also it's never alcohol. So
yeah, she really just like went for it with it. It's so funny. But also, I'm really excited though for when they do have more like smutty scenes in the next book because nobody will be ripping anything to shreds because he's an angel. So I wonder like what things she's gonna say now. Like, or like instead of like growling or like purring, I'm like, what is Hunt gonna do?
I hate that. I hate like
Very curious. Okay, I literally can't find it. It's bothering me, but it's fine.
I don't blame you. I think it's a bit of like it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
I also wanted to talk about the scene when Bryce went to the club and when there was like this bomb attack and she basically threw herself over Juniper. That was of course cool because Bryce is just such a good friend, but also so sad to see because she could have literally died there. It was so upsetting.
Yeah. It was oh sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like really quick. I just think that like that's too like one of the qualities that like I love in Bryce, and I feel like Sarah J. Maas really like honed in on that is like that loyalty that she has to her friends and like just like how much she would literally just like risk her own life for like any of her friends and she would literally do anything for them, but like she doesn't give herself that credit. You know what I mean? Like but I love that she just like would literally do anything to help her friends and save her friends, and especially like with her trauma from like what happened with Danica and how she like blamed herself for that. Like I just feel like even more so she's like needing to do something to kind of like have that not happen again, you know?
Yeah. I feel like there was also to a certain degree some kind of like self-deprecation in the fact she didn't like even question the fact that she might be valuable enough to try and save. And like surely she was aware of the fact that like Juniper wasn't gonna get seriously hurt. And like at worst case, like she would survive. She wouldn't like die from it. But the fact that she was so quick to just like throw herself over Juniper, like not even thinking about the fact that like she could really seriously injure herself, possibly thinking about it, but not caring because she doesn't feel like she was like really worth anything. Even though in the act of like throwing herself over, she just proves that she's such a great person. So of course she deserves to live. But I thought it was a really interesting like insight into like how she was feeling at the time because she feels like a very closed off character. Like she feels like she doesn't share a lot of things and she doesn't want to because she's very independent and she doesn't understand the fact that she can share with people how she's feeling and stuff like that.
Well, that's why I think it's really interesting too. Why I think that like Sarah J. Maas did such a good job writing her character is because I feel like with everything that Bryce does, especially like in that like beginning middle section of the book, it's very much like you can tell she has a wall up. So like the thing she's saying is very like, oh, I don't give a fuck kind of attitude. You know, it's like this very much thing, but like in instances like that where it's like her gut instinct, like you can tell like when she gets more vulnerable and like she cares more. So like I think she did a really good job of writing her like that because you see her in those instances where she's just being her genuine self and she's not thinking about having her wall up, if that makes sense.
I think it was also just very cute when Bryce got like some kind of food for Danica's birthday to bring it to her over the water. And I don't know, it just shows how much Bryce still cares about her friends, even though it was super sad because I don't know, one of the werewolf person wrote something on it.
Yeah, this little bitch that now is like at the end, she's like feeling all bad, and I'm like, fuck off, you're a bitch.
Yeah.
She was so rude and annoying. I hated all of those werewolves. Like when they had that scene where they went to go like talk to Sabine or whatever,
Mhm.
and they're all so mean. And I'm just like, for what reason? Like, you're actually terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like really full of themselves. They thought they
Yeah.
were so great, but it was like, sure, they're not even like that high class or anything like that. They just
No.
think that they're great, and it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're annoying.
I also didn't really like understood when I was reading the book why everyone was hating Bryce, because she literally did nothing wrong when Connor and Danica died,
mhm.
and everyone was like blaming her the whole time.
Mhm.
And even when her text messages got like leaked, I thought it was like so mean, but obviously also felt really real because a society likes to shame women, especially.
Mhm.
And I just thought,
Yeah.
what if this would have been the other way around? Like Connor would have lived, Bryce would have died, and his messages would have leaked. I think, I don't know, it feels like maybe society would have handled that differently. And I just
Oh, yeah,
felt it was like
definitely.
so unfair.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I think it's a good like parallel to real life where like yeah, she was out drunk and on drugs and partying, and like because of that, something that was completely out of her control, like she's being vilified for, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that happens a lot in like real life is like if
Mm.
you're too drunk or something like that happens, anything bad that then happens, it's like it's your fault, like you shouldn't have been drunk and you shouldn't have done that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it was like a very realistic thing, even though I agree, I'm like, she literally did nothing, but yeah,
I think
I
like
definitely agree.
even if you take away all the like things of like she was on drugs and stuff like that, sometimes women get vilified just for being women. It's like you're a woman and you have certain like anatomy, therefore automatically like if something happens to you, it's your fault because like you weren't taking precautions to stop it from happening. And I hadn't even thought about it. I think that what Leah said was really like interesting and like something I didn't even think about. The fact that like if it had have been Connor or any other guy, that they would not have thought twice about it. But because it was Bryce, it was like automatically it's her fault, even though she literally had nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. How, I guess because we've talked a lot about everything else but besides the actual plot. Like, so like how did you guys feel about like the whole like mystery and then like the reveal at the end? Like what were you guys' thoughts on like that whole situation? I mean, it's a lot to unpack,
Yeah,
but
there was a lot. I felt like there
Mhm.
was so much, and at points I almost lost it. I was almost like, okay, so this bit's true, but this bit isn't. But now that's not. And the funny thing is, like, I was so invested in it that honestly, she could have told me anything, and I would have been like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Well, there's this random person that we've never heard about, and it was their fault. Yeah, fine. But I think, especially because like she's written Bryce as such a good character, the fact that there was so many like plot twists that kind of were betrayals to Bryce was really clever because it kind of tugs at your heartstrings because you feel really bad for her. And especially the fact they come back to back. Like, first of all, she thinks it's Danica's fault, and that like everything she's thought about Danica is suddenly like not true, and she's this horrible person. And then there's the whole thing with Hunt, and then she's like, oh my god, now this person that I thought was going to be my new like person is now just just using me or whatever. But I also felt like there was a lot going on. I think it could have been cut down a little bit, but yeah.
Did you guys see the thing with Hunt coming in the end?
No. I was literally like, excuse me. I mean, I knew he was being a little bit sketchy because I noticed that like a few chapters like prior to that, he kept getting like phone calls and then like leaving the room. And I was like,
I just thought that was to do with the fact that he literally like had a boss who was an asshole, was trying to get him to do stuff all the time.
Yeah, but I feel
mean?
like but I feel like for me, I feel like it's because like they didn't talk about that the entire book. Like that was never mentioned before. So
Fair
then
enough,
like all of a sudden, like because I feel like he would like answer the phone in front of her, you know, and then like he would say something, he'd be like, oh, I have to go like to Micah or whatever. That I feel like I noticed that he started like leaving the room and stuff like that. And I was like, but I also was just like looking super deep into absolutely everything. But I didn't actually think that it was going to be something like that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you guys see the part coming with Micah being the evil guy behind all of the things?
No, I mean, honestly, I have to say, like, and maybe that's just like good, or maybe I'm just dumb, but like, I literally, when I was reading it, like, I had absolutely no idea, like, what was happening, like, with that. Like, I had no guesses of anybody who, like, I thought would be responsible or anything like that. And to be honest, when they told us the whole thing about like Danica being kind of like the one to steal and like do all that, like, I like fully bought it. I was like, I could see that, you know?
Yeah, me too.
I'm the same.
Yeah, I was like emotionally destroyed at that part. I
Yeah,
was
no,
like,
me too, because I like fully believed it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I never guess anything. Like, I'm the worst person at guessing plot twists and stuff like that. I think it's also because I just kind of gave up on it. I was like, I feel like I'd be too drained if I was trying to figure out, like, what was going on, like, properly figure out, and also read it. And, like, also, if you guess it right, you're kind of ruining it for yourself if you're, like, purposely trying to figure it out. So, like, I don't know, when people like sitting reviewing books and they're like, oh, it was so like it was so easy to guess, like I just knew it was going to happen. I'm like, what, like, where did you get your brain from? Because I would like that one. Maybe it would be a bit easier to walk through life if I thought that way. But I just never guess anything, and I'm usually like, as I said before, if I'm invested in the characters and stuff like that, anything could happen, and I'll just like accept it.
So I actually thought until the part where Micah revealed himself to Bryce at the end, I actually thought that maybe he and Bryce will become a thing in the end, because Sarah J. Maas obviously likes to split up couples, and I thought, okay, Hunt and her will break up, and then she's going to be with Micah because, I don't know, he seems to be super attractive, and that's why I thought that, and I don't know, it didn't happen, obviously. He died.
Luckily, if that had have happened, I swear to God, if that had have happened at some point, I would stop right there and I'd be like, I'm not reading it anymore. Because I would personally be heartbroken at the fact that, like, Bryce seems like such a good judge of character. So, like, I mean, considering it's Sarah J. Maas, yes, that definitely could have happened. Like, I can see her doing that. But I don't think it would have made sense for the character. But luckily that didn't happen, because that would have been gross. Especially the way that there was that one scene where she was like coming out of the elevator. They walk straight into Micah and that other like scary woman or whatever, and then he basically asks her out to dinner, and she's like, "No thanks," and he's so shocked, like clearly never been rejected ever in his life. And I just thought that was like really cool. I like those moments where she just says what she wants. She's a good person at saying no if she doesn't want to do something. Tough shit for the other people, but
yeah. Well, no, even like in that big reveal scene, like I love it because I had like marked those parts, like when I think it's like when she's like making him his tea or something and he's like being an asshole and she's like being a bitch like back to him. She's like being like sassy and like snarky like back at him. And like just being super sarcastic. And I'm just like, I love that she literally is like terrified for her life right now. So much so that she's like having all these people like watch what happens because she just doesn't trust it. And she's still like being sassy at him. I just like love her.
But she should have a YouTube channel. She'd be great.
I would be her number one fan. How did you guys feel like about that whole like reveal scene and how it was like televised, that like they could see everything that happened? Like, how did you guys like that setup?
So I liked it, but I also had some issues with it. Well, first of all, it was hilarious because everyone could basically see how how Bryce, a half fae, half human, basically killed this really high up angel and basically just vacuumed him into nothing at the end. I thought that was hilarious. But I also thought like the whole time the other people were like sitting there in the circle and watching like the live stream basically. They were like, no, we can't reach them in time. But still, I thought maybe just like go there so you'll still have a bit of time left to actually be there. Yeah, just try and just don't watch it the whole time. Yeah.
No, because then they would have missed it. You know, like you want to
That's
watch
true.
it,
It was
right? You know,
compelling.
it's not like you can just record it or something and then watch it when you get back. I thought it was. I mean, I haven't really thought. This is just something I'm making up on the spot, but it kind of feels like it kind of parallels to the way that, like, in the real world we watch TV. We watch people going through things, like putting themselves in bad situations, which obviously she hasn't put herself in that situation, but still, like, we watch a lot of reality TV where people are in bad situations. And whenever, like, it gets brought up in fiction, that thing of, like, someone televising themselves in a bad situation, it does kind of make you think about, like, why do we watch that kind of stuff? And the way that they're just sitting and watching it is like they could obviously have different reasons. Like, they say that they can't reach her, but I guess there's probably also some kind of, like, morbid curiosity of, like, kind of watching a shipwreck, you know, like kind of rubbernecking. So yeah, but I thought it was really cool. I always like that kind of, like, bringing elements like that. I always enjoy, like, technology being used, but not necessarily, like, in a positive way, because I personally think technology is shit. But but yeah, when it gets kind of brought up and, like, you can look at, like, because in the real world a lot of people just think, oh, it's great that we've got phones and we've got this and that, and we're aware of the fact that there's a lot of detrimental side effects to having technology, but it's not until you see it in, like, a different context that you realize that actually maybe it's not so great that someone is literally fighting this, like, really powerful guy and they're just sitting and watching it.
No, I feel that. I really liked it because I felt like it gave it a lot more tension. And it kind of, like, reminded me, like, gave me, like, Hunger Games vibes, you know, because it's like a similar thing where it's like these people are watching these people in, like, this terrible situation. They're literally trying to survive. And it's just like this whole thing of, like, I mean, I get they could do something, but, like, especially for Hunt, I really liked that element because, like, Hunt, that was when, what's her stupid name, was, like, had him, I don't know, like, with her wind or something where he couldn't breathe or whatever. So he was just kind of, like, stuck there and, like, watching this person that he loves and, like, in this really scary, like, situation. And I feel like it made it, like, have so much more tension. And I really liked that, rather than if we just got from Bryce's point of view, like, her being there with the big reveal. You know, like, I liked how it kept going back and forth and how there was, like, people who were like, do something, you know what I mean? Like, we need to go. And then there's other people who were like, no, we can't do anything. Like, just stay here. It just felt very intense.
Yeah.
And I liked that intensity.
Yeah, it also added, like, a so there's, in the UK, there's this show called Gogglebox, which is, like, people sitting and watching TV and you're watching them react to it. And it was kind of similar in this book where, like, they were watching something, and so not only do you have your own reaction to, like, the plot twist of, like, Bryce being the whatever it was, the Starborn, and then being the other, like, being the Horn and everything like that. But on top of that, you also get their reactions, and, like, because there's so many of them, they have so many different reactions, and, like, some of them are, like, you know, elated because of it, like, they're, oh my god, this is so great. Other people are like, oh shit, now what am I gonna do, because she's, like, more powerful than me and whatever. And so I thought that was, like, an interesting adding a layer to it.
No, I also thought that everyone just, like, sat around also felt very real to politics in general, because I feel like a lot of the time politicians just, like, say we have to do this and we have to do that, and in the end they do nothing.
Yeah, they sit around, they're like, oh, there's a bunch of people dying. Okay. Time for tea.
Yeah.
Literally.
Basically.
Literally. How did you guys feel about Lahaba?
Oh my god, I was so sad.
I literally was crying. I, like, actually cried.
I think I wrote down in my notes justice for Lahaba at some point. I was like, I'm gonna start a hashtag. She can, like, they should do some kind of, like, necromancy shit, like, bring her back from the dead.
100%. It was
Petition.
like, oh my god, I was, like, destroyed. Like, I was, like, genuinely like, tears streaming down my face, because it's just, like, throughout the whole book, like, obviously, like, Bryce is just, like, being, like, a little bitch, so she was just, like, being rude to her, but, like, you know that they have this kind of, like, bond already, and, like, Lahaba is, like, this like annoying little sister, and she's just like so fun and like sweet. And then just even like I think it made it worse like when Bryce was like, oh, like, but like I freed you, like whatever, and she's like, no, I know, like this is what I want to do. I was like, stop. And then the part which was also very Hunger Games-esque where like she's obviously like dead, and then I think it's like Rune and like Hunt, and they do like the little salute for her. I was like, I actually can't deal. Like I could not cope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I swear to God, she's the MVP. Like I'm
100%.
just saying, like she, and the way that she dies, of like just you can tell like throughout the book, you know that she has so much adoration for Bryce. Like she loves her so much. But then like that being kind of the final thing of like what happens and everything. It just I said, do you know what? Is that Jessica's fault? She's the one that went and bloody got that nook thing. Like, why is she stupid?
Yeah, and then even too, like I just love, and like I just love that. I just love that everything like seemed to like go so seamlessly together in this book, and like how Leah was saying earlier, like everything that happens in this book is important, because even like after she did that, and then Bryce's whole thing where she was like, Lahaba didn't do that for me to run away, like she did that so that I could kill him, you know, like and for her to like be that also like quick-witted to be like, no, I'm not running away, like I'm gonna kill this man, like he literally, like my friend died because of this stupid man. Well, all of her friends died actually because of him. So like I don't know, it was just really great. I felt like that whole scene was like so well done.
Yeah, and also how the way it was set up, because before we get to see the scene where Bryce goes into this, I don't even know how it's called anymore, where she practices how to shoot with guns. Yeah, and everything was just set up also that her stepfather is like this really cool, really good gun person. like the first time reading it, I was like, okay, cool. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, that's why we get it. So we know that she's going to kill him for sure.
100%. Yeah, because I thought that too. I mean, the scene where they were at the shooting range, like I didn't even think of it like that, because I was just like, oh, it's another thing where like obviously Hunt saw that and was like, oh, like, you know, like more things that he likes about her. And so like that's what I just kind of took it as. I was like, okay, this is kind of like a little relationship development moment, you know what I mean? And then also too with like Rune being there and his two friends, I was like, okay, this is just like a character kind of development moment. But like I really liked that, that it's kind of like goes back to that, where like she knows how to shoot a gun, she can kill this man because of her dad and like all of this other stuff. So
oh my God, you know what? So I didn't even think about that either. And then it just reminded me of, there's that term that you use in drama, I think it's Chekhov's gun, where like if someone shows a gun, at some point the gun's gonna go off. So that's clever. Who would have thought that would be in fantasy romance?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's how everything was like in this book. Everything had a purpose, and everything was like brought back to like at the end.
I think Sarah J. Maas also really shines when she writes urban fantasy, because like you guys said before, like the world building is just a bit all over the place, confusing. We don't really know where exactly we are right now. And I feel like that is a thing that is also in her other books, in Aquitar and Throne of Glass. And I think urban fantasy is maybe really her thing, as she's just so much stronger in writing characters and relationships and all of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, but like also urban fantasy is my favorite genre, so I might be biased.
It's making me want to read more urban fantasy. Like I always had an inkling towards that I would prefer that to, because I am someone that like usually goes more for like thrillers and horrors and stuff like that, which tend to be more based in the real world. I thought that I would prefer urban fantasy, but I'd only like I'd barely read any until we read Jade City, and then after reading that I was like, oh my God, this is really good. And now I've read this and that's really good as well, so like I definitely need to. But I feel like urban fantasy isn't spoken about as much as like I just feel like there's a lot of other fantasies out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like quickly realizing, like the more that I'm reading fantasies, the more, you know, like just like with anything, the more you read different kinds of tropes and stuff like that. Like you see what you like.
Yeah.
And like I feel like this cemented that like urban fantasy is like for me, because I feel like most urban fantasies are like those are the ones that like I really love. Because like Jade City, and then even like Legendborn, that one too.
Oh yeah.
And like I read These Violent Delights, and like I really love that. And that was like in, you know, like 1920s, like China and everything like that.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that's 100% my vibe. Like I'm not about this whole big like high fantasy, like fantastical world. I'm like, no, give me like fantastical things in a real life setting, and I'm like so about it.
Yeah.
No, I really want to read that. Is that the one that's like pitched as being Romeo and Juliet retelling, and then it just really isn't anything to do with
I was
Romeo and
gonna say
Juliet?
don't. It's the same. It's similar names, and that's
Is
about
it?
and like it's like
Okay,
warring.
Yeah.
Like, and that's literally it. Like,
I mean,
do not go into it.
you could basically say that it's the Cold War, a retelling of the Cold War,
Yeah.
because it's two different things.
No, literally, and that's what I tell everyone, because everyone's like, because they're expecting it to be like super romance heavy, and I'm like, no. I'm like, the romance is basically non-existent, but like the book itself is really good. I loved the book, but I was like, just go into it. Don't think about Romeo and Juliet at all. Just like take that away.
So like
I read that to my ever-growing TBR.
I also read These Violent Delights, and I thought it's going to be way more like Romeo and Juliet, and that's why I didn't like it, because it obviously wasn't. And I wish I could just like reread it for the first time and just go into it knowing it's not like Romeo and Juliet. It's just the names that are similar.
Yeah, because I think that's what like a lot of people were saying, like why they didn't like it, because especially Romeo and Juliet, like it's such an obviously like iconic story that like there weren't even, I remember when I first started reading it, I was like, there's not even scenes that are like kind of similar to Romeo and Juliet. Like I thought we were going to get a scene like where they meet, you know what I mean, and how they meet at kind of like a party type thing, and it's like you don't get any like iconic scenes like that. And so I was like, at some point I was like, okay, this is like not Romeo and Juliet at all. I'm just gonna take that out. And then I feel like once I did, I was like really into it.
I also wanted to ask you guys, how did you feel about Bryce's and Rune's relationship?
I loved it. I was like 10 out of 10. I loved it so much because I felt, again, like it was so realistic, where it's like they and you could tell that like from the get-go that Rune like really cared about her, and like he wasn't just like this terrible like brother. And I just really loved that, like even when she was being so rude to him and she was like, I hate you, like, and just like this whole thing, like he never like gave up on her. And like I feel like I think that's part of the reason too why I love him so much. Like I just think he's like such a great person and like a great character, and I really really loved their relationship. And like I'm excited in the next book for them to have more of like a familial like bond together, like now that they're kind of like over all of their like drama and stuff. And I'm also hoping that there's gonna be a little Rune and Hunt bromance. Like I want that.
Oh my god, that would be so great. I didn't even think about that. That would actually, I feel like, especially now that they've kind of solidified the fact that they actually don't hate each other, and like realize, oh, we can be brother and sister now and stuff. I feel like they potentially gonna like gang up on their dad, like against their dad. Which will be great, just them kind of like, because I mean ultimately they've both kind of got, I can't remember if Rune had more power than his dad or if he was just a little bit less, but Bryce is like off the off the chart. So I feel like they both have like together the potential to like really wreak havoc on their dad. And like I think towards the end of the book as well, he realized that like he was in the wrong, that the dad was in the wrong and everything. So I feel like it's just like I could just imagine them like doing things to make him feel bad, and he just feels like terrible because he's like actually recognizes the fact that the way he acted before was not right in any way.
I agree. How do you feel, Leah?
I also really loved them, especially from like reading a lot of fantasy books and from fantasy in general. I loved that they were like only half brother and half sister, because we often do not get that dynamic in books. And I thought just in general all of the different dynamics that Sarah J. Maas wrote into this book, like also with Bryce and her stepfather, who's like her dad, and
Yeah.
with Rune also. Just all of these different family dynamics felt really cool and just real, and I love the representation of that, because I feel like especially in fantasy we never get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always like either way you have like sisters and brothers, or all of them are dead and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. Also, too, like on the rune topic and the family topic, what do you think about like the Oracle and like his whole thing of like the family line or whatever is gonna like end with him? Like, what do you think that means? Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
He better not die.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't like that.
But
I
also
don't know.
I feel like Sarah J. Maas always does this, that she gives us like information and we think it's this, and it never turns out to be what it is in the end.
That's what I'm
So
hoping for. I'm hoping
yeah.
it's like some kind of like weird little, weirdly worded thing. I don't know, but I'm just like,
It could also just be that he doesn't want kids. I mean, like,
mm-hmm.
to be fair, I wouldn't bring kids into that world anyway. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, I don't like to speculate too much because I don't want to think of things and then get my hopes up and then be like, oh, it wasn't that. It's
Yeah.
actually something really bad. But
Yeah.
like, there's loads of ways out of it, and then but it's like the thing is technically for the bloodline to end, it would mean that both of them, there would have to be something that happens to both of them, because
Well, I think,
technically, like Bryce could still continue it, right?
yeah, I think that it was mentioned in the book that that's one of the reasons why he was trying to distance himself from Bryce also is because because that's what he was thinking. He was like, if she's a part of my life and it's saying that the line ends with me, then like that means she's gonna die. Like, so I think that it was mentioned too that that's kind of why he was like also distancing himself from her a bit.
Yeah. I think also maybe, I don't know, I don't know what will happen in the end, but I think maybe just how the whole political system works in here, Bryce and Rune will maybe change that, and that's why it sounds like he's going to
Yeah.
die. Or that's what I'm hoping for, so that they don't die, obviously.
That they abolish the system.
Yeah.
Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where this is heading towards, because I
Yeah.
just feel like they kept mentioning like obviously the whole thing with
With the
like,
rebellion.
yeah, with the rebellion, like, sorry, my lines are all weird. But like, yeah, with like the human rebellion, and then obviously like Hunt and how he was a part of like that whole rebellion, and like the whole reason why he's like enslaved now and everything. I think it was like, I think there's just so much talk about rebellion in like different ways that I'm like, there's no way that that's not going to become a part of this.
Yeah.
And then I think especially too, because like that, there's this one scene where they go and talk to that Briggs guy, that human guy who was like bombing everything, and he says something to Bryce, like kind of like under those lines being like, you know, just because you didn't have the same experience as like us humans, now you think that like what we're doing is wrong, when like you're also being discriminated against and stuff because you're human and stuff like that. Like, and I just thought that like that was really interesting, because I was like, that's so true, because like if she wasn't with Danica and a part of this kind of world, and she was still just treated as like half human, like she probably would also be siding with the rebellion as well, you know? So I thought that was like super interesting.
Yeah, I think like that. I think Bryce will also maybe look into like the whole rebellion thing a bit more, since Briggs also mentioned that Danica was not really on his side, but she was kind of almost on his side, minus the killing part and that, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
I also wanted to ask, did you guys expect Bryce to be powerful as she is?
Not quite as powerful. I feel like she really got everything at the end. It was like seriously like she was the like biggest power in total. Like I thought that she was going to be really powerful, but I also thought that maybe like the power was more so just going to be who she was, as opposed to like all of a sudden getting all these powers sort of like given to her, or like unlocking certain parts of herself. But I didn't like. I thought she had to be powerful just in like some capacity, just because of the fact that she's the main character and that's usually how it goes. But I wasn't expecting quite that level.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting, and I feel like I kind of liked the way they did it because, yeah, I mean, same. I was like expecting something to happen because, yeah, she's the main character, and like that's what happens. But because didn't she only got the power because she made the drop at the gate, and like that's the only reason why she got that power is because her like starborn power or whatever is she could just light up, like she couldn't actually like do anything really with it, right? Like she was just super bright, and that's why she never mentioned it because like she didn't actually have like that much power. But then once she made the drop and she was touching the gate, it was like every little ounce of power that was dropped in there so that people could like make their wish or yell things or whatever. Then like that was what she got. That's what I was under the impression. So I feel like I liked that because then it wasn't like, oh, she had this power within her and now she's like showing how powerful she is. It's just like she just so happened to end up like taking that from.
Yeah, it was just lucky.
You know what I mean? It was just kind of like it was lucky. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's more interesting of a dynamic than like if she was just like she's been powerful the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's definitely been done a bit too much in the fantasy genre.
So you see, I read the book 2 times now, and I thought she's just like super powerful, but it makes so much more sense what you just described actually, and it makes it so much better that she's just as powerful because of all these people who touched the gate.
Yeah. So I thought that was like a good way to do it, at least. Like if you're gonna give her power, at least do it something like that where it's like she was just lucky that she got it, you know?
Yeah. And also when she made the drop, I was like crying.
Oh, me too.
Danica.
Literally that whole last like 150-ish pages, I think I cried like 3 times. I was like, I was not physically okay.
I think I was close to crying, which is as close to crying as I probably could be.
Yeah.
I'm like, I cried for everything. So
in this book, I cried so many times.
100%. It's just so good.
Yeah. Also, when and Juniper I think she told Hunt that Bryce basically wanted to jump off the roof at some point.
Oh yeah.
And where she just like was on the phone with her the whole time, making sure that Bryce is still alive. That was also so heartbreaking. Yeah. Also a part where I cried, obviously.
Yeah. No, I literally have so many blue tabs in my book, and like the blue tabs are like the parts that like make me sad or like really emotional. And I'm like, I've also never used so many blue tabs because I'm like, there's so many parts of this that are like so sad and like just not even sad, but just like so upsetting for like Hunt or Bryce or like anyone because like they just went through so much shit, you know? It's just one of those things where like when you see someone who like is so undeserving of all the terrible things that are happening to them and you just like feel for them and you just want them to be happy so bad. Like that's how I felt about Bryce and Hunt. Like I just want them to be happy and like not have to worry about all this, but like obviously it's a fantasy and they're just going to be thrown into more shit and I'm not going to be prepared.
Also in the ending scene when all of the high people, like the politicians and stuff were at this meeting, when the witch, I forgot her name, the queen witch lady.
Or Hypaxia or whatever her name is.
Yeah, when she freed Hunt and he killed the angel woman. That was so
my god, that
epic.
was amazing.
As he should.
Yeah.
I literally love that so much. He literally decapitated her. I was like, thank you.
I mean, especially because she was hinting towards it. She was like asking him before, if I had a way to remove it, like, would you want me to do that? And then like I didn't think that was going to happen. So then when she was like, she showed up and she was the queen, and then just did it. Like I think he was shocked as well. He was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that scene.
Because
so good.
Yeah, the first time reading this book, I thought that the angel lady, what's her name actually? Sandriel, is that her name?
Sandriel, I think.
Something
Oh
Yeah.
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought like first of all, of course, she's well written because she annoyed me the heck. She just annoyed the heck out of me, and I thought, okay, oh no, so we'll have to deal with her for the next like 3 books or so. And I was so happy when she died.
Me too. Yeah, I thought so too. I was like, great, like she's gonna make everything so terrible for Hunt, and like
Mm.
I'm really happy. And I love that it was kind of like again, like another parallel between like Hunt and Bryce that like at this point in the book, like they both got their retribution, like they both got revenge on the people who like caused their trauma,
Mm.
Yeah.
And I like really love that because I'm just like, yes, as you should. Both of you, 10 out of 10. Kill those motherfuckers.
If only that could happen in the real world.
That's what I'm saying, but
Right. I don't know if there's really anything like last to add. Oh, do you know what? I was thinking about that little, was it a chimera that she had as a pet?
mm-hmm.
That was just, I kept on thinking how cute it was. And like the fact that it kind of mirrored the way that Hunt and Bryce are looked at by the rest of society. It's like having, like, that they have these sort of preconceived notions about them. It was the same with the chimera. Like, it reminded me kind of the way that pit bulls get treated of being like these really vicious dogs, or just any kind of animal that is treated as vicious and is like looked at as being bad. But like really, if you just treat it right, like it's not going to hurt you. So just like leave it alone.
100%. I love that. I just love like all like the chimera and like Lahaba, like just her like her little group. Ugh, just so nice.
Oh my god, that whole scene, because it's obviously I'm pretty sure it starts off with the chimera kind of like going into the water, right? Nearly drowning. Bryce saves it. And then like you're thinking it's gonna die because it's like basically choking on water. And then it survives, so you're like, oh my god, okay, fine. And then is it in the same scene then that like Lahaba then like jumps into the it was like a roller coaster. Like it was seriously like some of the most tension from the whole book is just like shoved into that one scene.
100%.
And it's crazy.
Yeah, the whole like end of the book was just a roller coaster for me. Like just it was a lot.
Yeah, like the first time reading this book, I think for the last 200 pages I finished in like one sitting because I just couldn't stop reading it. And now just rereading it, the entire book, I was like so excited for that fighting scene and also for Hunt blasting Sandriel's head off of her body. And also just one thing about Bryce's pet, I forgot his real name, whatever she named him. He's actually able to teleport, right?
I don't know. I did not pick up on that. Maybe.
Because when the whole world in the end is or the whole city is going down because there's like all of these demons from hell, he was supposed to be in his crate, but then in the end he's like in the hallway or something.
Oh, I didn't even
maybe
pick
he
up
can
on
just
that.
Can't he open the thing? I thought he could open the door on the crate.
Because I think maybe there was also seen in the beginning when Hunt wasn't yet invited into Bryce's apartment and he stayed at the other side of the roof of the other building. I think her animal also came out, teleported to him and bit him and went back. I don't know what's up with that.
Oh my god, I don't know if I completely missed that. I mean,
but
probably
maybe I'm misreading things, but I thought it was very interesting.
I feel like that's probably a thing because it's like a magical being,
Yeah, they can do whatever.
Like, clearly, I was like, clearly it has to have some sort of like magic. So I feel like that makes sense. I'm gonna take your word for it.
No. And did you guys remember the I don't know how it was called, but they're like the glitter ponies or something that Bryce had?
Oh my god, yes.
Oh my god, yeah, that was such a funny scene.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, oh no, what's going to be in there? Oh no. And then she just had like these old toys, and I was like, it's so relatable.
It's just like so cute. And then it's just so funny because he's like so embarrassed because he clearly thought it was like something else. And then I just like love that like where she teased him and she's like, oh, it's in the nightstand. I was just like screaming. I was like, I'm obsessed. Like they're just like their dynamic is just so good. It's just so fun. But yeah, I love that. Like all of her little unicorn toys. I love that she didn't care too. She's like, yeah, I have those. Yeah, that's Jelly Jubilee or like whatever their names were.
And then named all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. But that's all I could think of.
Yeah,
like,
I think
don't know what else.
we've like milked
covered
it.
everything.
Gotten as much out as possible.
Yeah. I'm just so happy that like all of us really liked this.
Yeah.
I would have been so sad if like one of you guys like was just like not vibing and I was over here just like obsessing over this book, and then I would have been so upset.
Or if it was just both of us, we both hated it and you were just sitting there like trying to defend
Yeah.
it. Although I will say that like if that ever was a situation, I feel like you'd be a really good person at like defending a book.
Thank you. That's so nice. Listen, I think I could do a pretty good job defending a book as well. But yeah, I feel like you guys are so much more like critical about books than I am.
I don't feel critical at all. I feel like everything just swims around my head and I'm like trying to like grab onto words to try and describe things. And then eventually, and the thing is, whenever I do vlogs and stuff like that, I just sit and say a bunch of things. And then like what actually ends up in the vlog is like 10% of what I said. So it's like trying to do a puzzle. Like I'll take that bit and I'll take that bit. It's not what I said to begin with. Now I've made up a new sentence. Does it even make sense? I don't know.
No, that's literally how I am. Or I just like ramble. Like I literally made a vlog that I'm gonna upload this week, like of me reading this, but I was like, oh, I'll just upload it like after our live show. And I literally am just like rambling about absolutely nothing, but just like saying how much I love the book. Like that's all it is. It's not even anything actually like substantial.
Right, I think it's time. We've actually just hit an hour and 30 minutes, so I feel like that's a very timely time to end it. If anyone is out there watching this, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it.